This program is brought to you by the Southern Institute of Technology.
Located amongst the hustle and bustle of the city rests the beautiful and tranquil Dunedin Chinese Garden. As a gift to the city honouring its rich past, the garden serves as permanent reminder of the Chinese who first immigrated to Otago during the 1860s gold rush. With the help of Dunedin's sister city relationship with Shanghai and a lot of dedication, the Dunedin Chinese Garden is one of only a few authentic Chinese gardens outside of China in the world.
The history of the gardens has been an ongoing process, probably for about the last 12 years. A trust was set up in the first instance to undertake the building of the garden, and that came about from the sister city relationship we've got with Shanghai, which has become and developed into a very important relationship with the city.
It was designed initially so it could be built in New Zealand. But then we've got the input of the Shanghai Museum said that we would help you. Let's build an authentically transposed Chinese garden from Shanghai for you. And we're world class. And so they got involved, and we got a Shanghai architect from the Jiaotong University, Associate Professor Chow, and he's an expert in ancient Chinese architecture.
So originally, when this site was picked, they found a similar site in Shanghai and built the garden over there, then disassembled it and shipped it over here, sent artisans and Chinese builders over, and they spent 18 months building the garden here for what you see now.
The Scholar's Garden is a family garden. It was the family of the scholar, and they were the scholar gentry, the literati of the Chinese society. And the Chinese revered education, and that was the basis for the Confucianism examinations and for them to elevate themselves and to become sort of advisors of the emperor. So that in the end, in their retirement, they would build these beautiful family compounds, and the Scholar's Garden was the centrepiece of this family compound. These are designed as urban gardens, and they can be quite small. For example, this garden here is 3,000 square metres. So it's not large, but it looks larger because of the way it's been designed.
The Chinese are also very particular about the colours they want to see in a garden. And for them, it being hugely colourful is not a big thing. They'd rather that it wasn't. Some splashes of colour are nice.
Everything's sort of there to blend in. You'll see there why this garden is, why the walls are painted white. It's the subtlety of everything to blend in together. The Chinese say, give me a white wall and I'll paint it for you with plants and rocks.
You'll find most of the plantings have a bent to them. The Chinese don't like things to be straight. So things that are bending over and drooping are considered to be good. So you'll find that in a Chinese garden, the trees are all stripped, their lower leaves and branches are all stripped so that they've got a canopy on them, but it's the ability to see through things that they're looking for. So there'll be ground cover which will cover the soil, and then there'll be plants about mid-level, and all the trees will be stripped so that you actually get a vista through them.
And that gives the illusion of space as well, because this garden is only 3,000 square metres, yet looks much larger, because it's a living art form. In Chinese art form, the landscape, the word for landscape art is shang soi. Shang means mountain, soi means water. And so that's why water and rock are very important in terms of Chinese landscape design. And then this is to simulate. This is to create their art form in a living environment. And so this is a living art form. And you'll see there, that's why everything is winding. There's an old Chinese saying that says, when you build a Chinese garden, it must be winding. But when you have friends, you must be straight.
Chinese culture goes back thousands of years, and this rich history is portrayed through many aspects within the nation, including their landscape design. The Dunedin Chinese Garden is designed in such a way that everything is purposeful and has meaning. This style of landscape design is just as much about something looking beautiful as it is about telling a story. Sue Sim joins us to explain some of these hidden meanings.
So now, before you cross this Gong Bridge, we call this Gong Bridge. This design is way back 5,000 years old. And that stone is a very special stone and it's called Shen Shi. It means it's Shen stone. So when this design goes back 5,000 years old, the myth is, for those of you who haven't got partners or not married, means for those who are singles, when you cross this Gong Bridge, you would find one very soon and will live happily ever after. Now for those of you who have partners or married, once you cross this bridge, you are going to be even more happily ever after. And after you cross the Gong Bridge and go through the Moon Gate, in Chinese, anything that is round and full is always good. It means to say you have more than enough to use, to eat and to enjoy. And everything that is full and round is always good.
A traditional scholar's garden usually encompasses most of the philosophy and tradition behind the Chinese way of life. And so in saying that, you will find in the garden that there will be male and female rock forms.
And this type of rock is called, they come from an area called Taihu, which means Great Lake, which is outside of Suzhou. And they're there to signify the sort of the images of real mountains. The Chinese garden is designed so that it's got to be built with the hand of man, but looks like it comes from heaven. So it's got to look like nature, but surpass nature. And the rocks are a very important part of it. And the crevices and the caves and the little grottos in it are designed because in real life, large mountains have holes and caves and things like that. And so they're to simulate nature and to bring nature into your own household. These are mainly what they call, colloquially called female rocks, because their form, they're soft and rounded. And the male rocks are a bit more sort of dangerous looking. And the male rocks can, they generally use as feature rocks. They have narrow bases and wide heads. They have holes in them. And there are different features, and the leanness of them are special features which are used for Chinese garden feature rocks. So they all mean something. Everything has got a symbolism in the Chinese garden.
Now we are at the top of the rockery. Before you walk to the point, the best point in this garden, I want you to take a look to your left. There is one hole especially created. You take a look, you would see the hole of First Church. This hole, we call it the hole in the rock. Why? Because when the garden was built, the architect actually created this hole in the rock to harmonize the heritage of this garden to Dunedin's heritage. For that reason, this hole created to have the whole image of the First Church to harmonize the heritage of the garden to the city.
As I said to you, this is reputed to be the only authentically built and authentically transposed Chinese garden in the Southern Hemisphere. As I said, there's no nails holding these structures together. They're put together by the old-fashioned mortise and tenon joints. So you'll have a piece that comes up there and the other bit of wood would slot into it. So it's very held together very tightly. And also the poles and all the major panels have this linen layer resined around them to stop the wood from cracking. So if it does crack, it won't be unsightly and you'll never see it. And that's a very old-fashioned method of protecting the wood as well. And then it's sanded smooth like glass.
The paintwork is a traditional Chinese way of, on the woodwork is a traditional Chinese way of doing it. They don't use paintbrushes, they actually use cloth, so it's rubbed on. And the poles in particular have a lacquer on them, and it's actually layers of cloth and lacquer that have been put on top of the existing wood.
There are 380,000 handmade tiles here, and they all hand potted. All the poles are hand hewn out of and using hand axes. There are 130 tons of Jinshan granite, which comes from a particular granite quarry just out of Suzhou. There are 970 tons, and this is one of the things that make it sort of authentic, is the 970 tons of Taihu Lake stone rock here. They came over in 45 20-foot containers.
What I enjoy about working here, well, working in a garden like this, meeting the public every day, getting a chance to have a chat. I really like the idea that you can develop people's interest in the place if you get a chance to talk to them. If they're unaware of the history of the place, and you get a chance to have a chat to them about that, and then lots of questions come and they go away thinking, wow, this is an amazing place.
So it's been a labour of love for lots of people, not just the trustees, but all the people who have been involved. And without their input, this garden wouldn't have been as success as it is now.
This program has been brought to you by the Southern Institute of Technology.